Hey guys, Darren Carl here, coach of Wise Ocean Pods, and welcome back to another episode of our round review series. On today's episode, we will be reviewing round 8, and what a round that was. The fantasy gods really just went, fuck you guys, you haven't had any carnage throughout the year so far, so here's 5 or 6 different options that you can be experiencing this week. So he threw about 6 issues out of, I reckon, and I think if you didn't manage to pick up at least one forced trade this week, then you should probably go get a lottery ticket, because yes, I think there'd be only a fair few out there that didn't cop an issue this week. But yes, we have some issues to deal with this week, so let's get into it, I guess. So before we get into the players, let's quickly go through how my team went for the week. And I'll be honest, I had a shocking week. Probably the worst week I have experienced in many years playing this game. And I'm still struggling to see why I scored so badly, but at the end of the day, I scored an 1855. So 200 points off par. Nothing to really scratch my head out. But, of course, yeah. How do I go from having my best week last week to having my worst week this week is just outstanding, honestly. Round rank of 60,000, so that shows you how bad it was. Dropped 5,000 spots, and now I am ranked outside the 7k, which, yeah, safe to say the Hilux is safe from me, and I think even a hat is safe from my team at this point in time. So let's have a quick look at why I scored so badly. So going line by line, Harry Sheasel stunk it up as my VC with an 89. Respectable score in terms of, with his role change. I'm happy with a 90-ish. Just, yeah, would have been nice as a VC option. Would have been, 110 would have sufficed, but couldn't do it. And that role change definitely looks like it's going to reduce his scoring by a fair chunk. His first score under 100 this year, so bit of a concern there with looking like that role is going to be pretty permanent. He didn't do too bad in it, still got 6 marks and 5 tackles, but yeah, just didn't get his hands on the ball enough for what we would have liked in a pretty good matchup, so he's a one to watch there. Lockie Shitfield was back in full swing, was tagged by James Jordan the entire game, so yeah, he just couldn't get his hands on the ball nearly as much, and yeah, we just see that in his marking, 1 mark where he normally averages around that 7 marks, so not too much of a concern there for me. I'm hoping he just returns back to his good scoring ways next week, but given that GWS lost, and yeah, it could be a bit of a blueprint for other teams to continue that tagging, so bit of a watch there. His break-even's quite high now, but at the end of the day, I'm not looking to trade him out, so I'm not looking at what his value is at too much. If it starts to become too consistent, then we'll worry about it, but once off week is definitely not a concern at all. Just a bit of a watch there. Nick Martin and Hayden Young were probably the only two sort of shining lights in my team this week. I think Hayden Young was my highest scoring this week with 125, so he probably gets my +3. Elliot Yeo was one of the bullets I copped this week when he went out with a groin issue at 3/4 time. The club has since come out and said that it's a very minor, but I'd imagine he at least missed this week and possibly 2 or 3 weeks, given that he has had groin issues in the past. We saw him last year where he was out for 5 weeks with a very similar issue, so I think they'll be on the cautious side of things, so he is definitely high up on my trade out list this week. Will Graham did well for what I sort of expected from him as my D6. Happy with a 56 from a rookie at the end of the day. Got that one right with Overhouse, so yeah, can't complain too much there. Moving on to the midfield, Zachy Merritt put up 110 and should just be my captain option each week, honestly. He hasn't dropped below 100 at all this year, and I think he's probably the only one now, after Sheasel and Gawn dropped. I think Gawn had one previously, yeah, round 0, so yeah, I think he's the only one on the ton run, so have to wait and see there. Scored 3 goals in this, which was a little bit of a concern, but yeah, just looking based off his stats, he looked like he played a bit more forward, but when you look at his CBAs, he still was number 1 guy in there, so that's that's a good sign for him. And yeah, he's just adding another string to his bow when he's kicking goals. Just when he's get his hands on the balls a little bit more and get more of those marks and tackles to get a big ceiling score for me. Tom Green was another bullet I copped this week, where he had three touches before being subbed out of the game in the first quarter, which is not something you want from a player you've only just traded in to debut. So yeah, definitely not the one I wanted, and I was absolutely gutted when I was watching this game. Was expecting him to go really well in what should have been wet conditions and should have been a tackling fest for him. But yeah, for it to be really dry and him subbed out quite early on and not even get a look at it was very disappointing. And what I thought was going to be a forced trade now looks like he might be okay and might be good to go this week. He's a test play, so I'm playing around with holding him this week, given that it may only be 1 week at the most. But it definitely could have been a lot worse because it did look like it was going to be the sin. And yeah, he was going to be out for a good 3-4 week, if not even longer. So he was going to be a forced trade out. But ended up dropping 78k this week, which is hurtful, given that now everyone's just going to grab him at a much cheaper rate when he comes good again. Say next week, even as close as next week, if he does put up a decent score this week against Essendon. So yeah, I doubt he'll be very unique. He's already still 41% owned. So there we go. Is that one? Bontempelli or Bontam Smelly again, just low tons all the time, just can't get past there. Two goals again, just looks lazy, honestly. No desire to get his hands on the ball, very low very low marks, not trying to get tackles very often. He's just standing around the pack and not doing a whole lot. So yes, he's been one I've got wrong this entire season, and yeah, he's really hurting my team at the end of the day. He's just not putting up any decent scores, and yeah, disappointing. But hopefully he can make it up again this week with the Richmond Tigers. So see how we go there. Butters, very similar, just low tons, not putting up any ceiling scores, which really hurt me this week. 104, averaging at 105. His highest score is 117, and that's about it. And dropped quite two probably stinkier scores. So just not getting it done. Does have a pretty good run coming up with the next 3 at least. So hopefully he can put up some decent scores there, especially with Connor Rosie out for a week or so. Riley Bonner, happy with him. Was a decent matchup for him, so look, I would have been more searching for a 90, but he wasn't too far off that in the end. So he's one I'm looking at holding for another week, given the easy matchup against Hawthorn. Jeremy Sharp, can't complain about that one. Closey and McKercher, another shining light in my side after holding him, and he reminds me very much of Harry Sheasel from last year, where people jumped off a little bit too early, obviously with a few issues, and now he sort of kickstarted his cash generation with 2 sort of back-to-back tons, pretty much. Yeah, so he looks like he's going to be a hold for a little while longer now. He seems to be that main guy back there with surprisingly a Fisher, so we'll get into that a little bit later, but yeah. I did make the right decision this week, and I benched Matt Roberts with the wet conditions, so I played Sharp over him after holding him after my trades changed, but yeah, that's alright. Even a Dry Clark scored better than him, which is surprising, and he stopped his cash rot, so that's surprising. The ruck line is where I lost a bunch of points this week, with my captain Max Gawn only scoring the 92, but I think a lot of people had him as captain, so it didn't hurt me too badly there. I think over 20% of the competition did that, so not too concerned with that. But yeah, compared to a Tristan Cherry and a Brody Grundy, who put up respective 130s on a head, we lost 50 points each on this line, so that's 100 points right here in my ruck line. So I ended up taking Jordan Sweet's score from the Thursday night after he put up a decent 88 from what I thought, and what wasn't my trade in. Ended up trading out Rowan Marshall just with all the flags that he was injured. He was getting someone who was coming in who's going to be a ruck support in Jack Hayes, but it didn't stop him from putting up a big 117 on my head. So it's probably just re-cements that you don't trade your primos no matter how bad they look, because he looked pretty good in that game as well and didn't really look like he was being managed at all. He didn't get subbed out, played 79% of the game, so maybe slightly managed, but nothing too crazy. And yeah, probably a big mistake on my part to trade him out, because that cost me some points and probably will continue to cost me points over the few weeks as we carry Jordan Sweet as my R2. So yeah, probably a bad week for training specifically, because he went straight to Tom Green, and we know what he did, unfortunately. But the cash generation from Sweet was pretty good at, stopping that rot from Tom Green, I guess. Moving on to the forward line, Heaney scored the 99, so can't be too disappointed there. Just, it was a tougher matchup for him, so didn't expect a huge ceiling score here. Can't be too sad about that. Sam Flanders looks like a safe 100 guy at the moment. He's been pretty good. And the rest of my forward line was pretty shocking. So Tom Power put up a 71, back in the midfield, which was pleasing to see. Wasn't able to get his hands on this ball nearly as much as what St Kilda was. We'll get into them a little bit later. But yeah, they comprehensively beat the North Melbourne. So yeah, that's all I will say. Jack McRae, just people are concerned with him. I'm probably not as concerned as what others are. I didn't watch the hell of a lot of this game, but the Western Bulldogs got comprehensively beaten by a better Hawthorn side. So, and that shown in his scoring, where he had 21 touches, but just wasn't able to get the marks as we sort of would expect from him, especially in an easy matchup like this. And they probably missed a handful of his tackles, honestly. That should have been closer to an 80, and probably wouldn't be talking about it too much. But yeah, I expect him to be fine, and people are concerned that he'll get dropped. I'm probably not thinking that's going to happen. I think he'll be fine. He's got a good matchup this week, so hopefully he can bounce back. Then, at the end of the day, all the forward options are shocking, and I don't think it hurt me too much this week, given, the likes of a Baker went 74, I think, and my Myers went a low 70 as well. So those were all sort of popular targets this week, and yeah, not too concerned there. Another bullet I copped this week was Nat Fyfe as sub, and unfortunately I did miss this as news on the Sunday. I was busy, so yes, ended up just rolling with it, and in the end of the day, it only cost me sort of 7 points, because it would have just been okay. Seth Campbell would have come on, and yeah, so at the end of the day, I probably would have made that same decision anyway, to field to Nat Fyfe, given that he could have come on at quarter time and could have had a decent score from there, but he only came on at just inside the third quarter, late in the third quarter, and yeah, put up a 28. So not too concerned there. My thinking with him so far is that I may looking at hot with him this week. Hopefully, that is his rest done for until the buys now, which is in 4 weeks' time for him, having around 13 buys. So yeah, hopefully he's good to go. But he does play Friday night this week, so I do get to have a look at him pretty early on. If he's going to be the sub, then I can look to trade him out. But if not, then he stays in my side. And Harley Reid put up a 55, pretty respectable. Probably wanted a bit more from him, given it was a pretty good matchup, but he did start really slowly with a 4 in the first quarter, and slowly got there in the end. So, and maybe Elliot Yeo being out for this couple of weeks will give him a few more points, so looking at holding him for a little while longer. But yeah, missed a lot of points here this week, given that Darcy Wilson went over 100. So, but yes, that's how my team went this week. Very poor, very shocking, and I'm not surprised if you've jumped off the video already, because this is just not good enough from me at this point in time. But we'll move on to... probably should do my +3, -3. Quickly, +3 was Hayden Young, and -3 was too many to name, honestly. It could go to Green, could go to Yo, could go to Whitfield, could go to Nat Fyfe. Yeah, too many to name. Captains was shocking, as we said. Sheasel, VC, and Gorman C. My last week's captains was also shocking. Probably no point even mentioning it. Only one person went over 100. which was Zach Merritt at 5, and had Dawson as a 3, who went 100. So not good there. And yeah, my trade-in options, not super disappointed. I was happy I moved on Darcy, Oliver Dempsey, sorry. But yeah, just Tom Green really hurt the weekend for sure. Well, yeah, let's move into the games real quick. Don't want to spend too much time this week. Just want to really forget this round ever happened, honestly. But we had the Thursday night game, the showdown between Adelaide and Port Adelaide, where the Crows got up on Port Adelaide by 30 points. And we saw a rising start in Jake Saligo, not Jack. Saligo put up a 115, and it looks like a pretty good option now. He's priced at 720 or 730 around that mark, so, and has a really low breaker even. So if you're shopping in that market, I definitely would suggest him. He's got an awesome run coming up with a decent stretch until his buy, so you can hold him through to that round 15 buy. So I think that's a really good option, and he should be able to make some decent coin for you. Has the job security there. Is the number 1 CBA taker at Crows at the moment, so I think he has plenty of options of points. Shown he can definitely tackle, and on his day can get a few marks as well, just on this, obviously a tougher matchup. Being Port Adelaide, doesn't get many marks around the field, so yes, I think he's pretty good. Definitely would suggest trading him in this week if you're in that market. Matt Crutch repaid those that held him through his, quieter weeks in the past couple of weeks, and his suspension, I think it was, or I can't remember what exactly it was now. I know he missed a week for something. But yeah, 103, you'd be pretty happy with that from him. Not bleeding too much in coin at the moment, just, getting the job done. Jordan Dawson, you'll probably be a little bit disappointed with this flat 100. Roll was still pretty good, so not too much to worry about there. I think it was just a tougher matchup, so yeah, I think he'll become good. And like I said, Crows have a pretty good matchup coming up, fixture, so I think he'll be pretty good to go, and probably a good trade-in target if you've got the coin for him. And I think that's pretty much it from the Crows. Obviously, we had Daniel Curtin, who debuted for them, scored the flat 35, and he was subbed out, I think, at half-time, or just after half-time, I think, so not too bad in terms of scoring. Had a slower start with a 2-point quarter before, scoring, I think, 20 or something in the second quarter, so it's definitely shown he can score on his day, and didn't play a full lockdown defender role, which was pleasing to see, so assuming he doesn't get dropped, he's probably a good downgrade target if you're looking somewhere around there, but I do think there's probably a few other better options at the moment. Just going back up the list here. Maybe Rory Laird is maybe the only one that should be crossing my lips here. Probably one I'm still not jumping on just yet. His role is slowly improving. I think he's up to 60% CBAs now. So that's 70. So he had 70 after having low 50s. So the role was definitely improving, but I don't think it's going to be super consistent as we sort of expect. We did see Jordan Dawson sort of drop down a little bit, and I think that's just what is going to happen at the Crows, unfortunately. I think it's going to be very much team dependent, or matchup dependent, that they're going to switch and change where they sort of need these certain players, and if Jordan needs to play a bit more forward, then Rory Laird gets the numbers. If not, then we see the likes of Isaac Rankin go in there as well, so I think it's going to be a bit of an up and down sort of roller coaster with him, but yeah, there's better options at his price range, I think. Where was I? I think that's enough for the Crows. Moving on to Port Adelaide, only a few names here to talk about. Ollie Wines just keeps getting it done this week, so if you look to trade him in last week, I think it was a pretty good option. I did sort of talk about that a little bit. Has a very good stretch until the buys, and obviously has that round 13 buy, which is really, really nice. Low time on ground though is pretty disappointing from him. He probably could have easily put up a 110, if not a 120, with a bit more time on ground. And with the likes of Rosie being out for probably a week, he's probably only going to score a little bit more, with a bit more dependency on him. Same with Zach Butters. Hopefully he can repay those owners, like myself. and put up a few more points there. Because frankly, these low tons aren't getting it done. I need some ceiling scores to make a difference now. And yeah, we spoke about Jordan Sweet. Obviously, he was a big trading target last week, and I wouldn't be surprised if some people are looking to still trade him in this week. Maybe not as an R2 option. I think we've probably seen the likes of that sort of backfire a little bit on most of those coaches that sort of traded in a Grundy or a Cherry or a Marshall as such, that didn't work as much. So, but I do think he's still a pretty good cash grab on your bench if you're looking that way. It is a lot of money on your bench, so he probably could go otherwise to make that sort of coin. So that's just my view. Moving down the list here, Burgoyne was pretty disappointing after going back to back sort of high 80s and 90s, so it was pretty disappointing from him, but it was a tough matchup for Wingman. Connor Rosie, he was the talk of the town for the Thursday night. Obviously, started on ground after what was a dramatic saga where we all thought he would miss this week, but then, Port Adelaide came out and said he was fit. He passed the test, and, Kent Inkley saw it with his own eyes and thought he was good to go, but you could see when he was on the ground, he just didn't look good. He wouldn't have that burst of pace, and he was reluctant to kick out there. And obviously, when you're sore, you're relying on your other hamstring a little bit more, and your body's compensating in other ways, so you're more prone to do injury. So that's what we saw him do. He was obviously sore, and yeah, he eventually hurt himself by, I think, hyperextending his knee a little bit. I don't think they've come out and said it was the knee an issue. I think it was the same hamstring issue, which sort of flared up a little bit more, and that's what caused him to be subbed out at, I think it was three-quarter time. Well, not three-quarter time, partway through that third quarter, I think it was. And yeah, that hurt for owners, only putting up the 51. He was on track for, a pretty good score, though. So, yeah, really disappointing, and probably looks like to be one of the bullets we need to trade out. Fortunately, I don't have him, but yeah, it's unfortunate for owners because now he's put back-to-back sort of low scores. I think last week he had, a 60, an 80, I think it was, before being subbed out, and now 50 really hurts, and he's going to have a massive break-even and drop a lot in coin. So, but hopefully it's only 1 week for him, and there is a world where I do see holding him. You probably just don't want to hold too many of these sort of injury-prone guys at the moment. But I think that'll sort of do it for this first game. Let's move on to the Friday night game where we saw the Pies beat Carlton by 6 points. We saw Nick Newman sort of flash back to his form from last year. 144, and this is what I sort of expected from him, for majority of this year. Honestly, with, the likes of Doherty out, I thought this is what he could do, but yeah, just not getting it done so far, but keep an eye on him. Probably not one I'd be trading in just yet. Yeah, keep an eye on him for sure. Sammy Walsh put up another low ton with the 33 disposals. Actually took some marks this week, so he took 4 marks, so that was pleasing to see for owners. Not many tackles though, which hurt his ceiling score. He's just that guy at the moment who's just low tons, like a lot of our primos, not getting those massive top line scores. We saw Harry Mackay as a forward option again put together 4 goals and put up a nice 96 if you're an owner. He's been a pretty good pick to start the year. Moving down the line, we've got Paddy Cripps, who had a pretty disappointing one. I know people were looking at him last week after putting some pretty good scores together. To put up a sub 70 is pretty disappointing, and what should have been a pretty good matchup for him. And we had another bullet. Most people, with people that still had him, Zach Williams put up a 54, which he was on target for a pretty good score. I think he was on track for a ton, but then eventually got himself injured with I think it was a hamstring in the end, or a calf, something like that. So it looks like he'll probably be out for a couple of weeks, very similar to a Yo. They'll probably be pretty cautionary with him, given his injury history, so he looks like it's going to be a forced trade. So look to jump off him, I'd say. I will go through and rank all these bullets eventually at the end of this video, I reckon, because I know a lot of people are going to be asking that this week. Besides that, there was no one else really worthwhile talking about there, besides maybe Matt Kennedy, who was named as a sub, which hurt a lot of people that did trade him in last week after having 2 tons or something like that. So, yeah, that's really just backs up my reason why he's just that Mr. Fix-It guy for them, unfortunately, and yeah, he doesn't have a secure role, so that's what scares me off about that sort of top player. Moving on to the Pies, really only we need to talk about Nick Dacos, who put up a 122, had the 32 disposals, 7 marks, 7 tackles, 2 marks, and 2 goals. And now he's got his price going in the right direction, so he is going to be a big target this week for many that don't own him. This time's right. He's got West Coast this week, so I think it's pretty much a no-brainer this week. If you don't have him, then jump on him. Going from an LEO to him only cost you about 100k, if that, so I think that's a pretty easy trade to make. But there's also other areas that you could explore as well. But I think that'll be all for this game. What was his name? I want to talk about him. Lockie Sullivan, who started as a sub, came on, I think, pretty early on because McCreary only played very minimal time. I think it was maybe early in the second quarter. And he put up a 57 from, 43% time on ground. So he was quite heavily managed in that role. But he's definitely shown he has some scoring potential. So if he is, named in the squad again, which I can't imagine why he wouldn't be, he'd probably one of the main trading targets as a downgrade if you're shopping in that market. He looked really good and looked composed and can score, so which is pleasing to see. Moving on to the first Saturday game. We've got Sydney Swans versus GWS. Saw Sydney Swans get up quite comprehensively in the end, so that's not good for my tipping. I didn't tip that way. We saw Brodie Grundy put up a big 134, as we sort of expected in the wet. 11 tackles. This is sort of expected from him in my books. So, yeah, it hurts those that traded him, but I think he'll be good in the long run. He's very inconsistent, so there's only a matter of time before he puts up a bad score. So, yeah, we'll wait and see on that one, but I probably will look to hold another week. His cash is going in the right direction. It's just up and down each week, so you get what you get, and don't get upset, I guess. Actually got on the good side of the umpires this week. Had 4 free kicks for and only 1 against. So that's probably normally the opposite way around. So that's probably one of the reasons why he scored so well. 35 hitouts is what we sort of expected from him. Up against Briggs, who has been a very easy matchup. So happy with him there. Isaac Heaney, we spoke about him a little bit. Scored the 1 goal too. So definitely could have been, a low ton, if not, should have been 110. Just, didn't quite get there. High time on ground, so it was really pleasing to see there. Not too much to worry about there, in my point. Errol Gordon had a really good matchup, so if you traded him in last week, or you have in, the weeks going past, you'd be pretty pleased in what could have been a pretty bad game for him, given the wet conditions. There was a bit of concern there, but he wouldn't get his hands on the ball as much as what we thought we saw. Just with the wet conditions. Taylor Adams is just slowly going about his business, not really doing anything to really prick the ears up at the moment. So just one on the watch list, and probably one that we'll maybe look at after his bye now. And we saw Matt Roberts scored only 49 in the wet conditions. I think he was doing pretty well until half time where the rain started to come down and he just couldn't get his hands on the ball anymore, being a half-backer. So, definitely one to be looking to trade out this week. If he didn't cop too much carnage, he'd probably be one to move off of, because his break-even is going to be pretty high in the, I think, 80s or 90s. I think, let's have a quick look at him. 82, yeah. So, Fremantle this week. So, definitely one I'd be jumping off of this week if you didn't cop too much carnage. Moving on to GWS, so we had Peatling, who looks like he's going to be a pretty good trading target this week. I don't know if a few people are looking at it, given his break-even. I think he is now in the negatives. I think it's negative 11. So he looks like he's going to be a pretty good option after what he's getting a lot more CBA usage. So let's have a quick look at that as well. Where is he? 63%. So we saw him have a little bit of time last week and has been getting spurts of CBA usage as a sub in most of these games. But yeah, it's just really jumped up in the last couple of weeks, and his scores have reflected that, an 81 and a 115 in the last week. Obviously, with Tom Green going down, he had a lot of that role pretty secured there. So pretty happy with him. And has a pretty good run. I'll say that. Round 12 bye is a bit disappointing, but for the next 3 weeks, he probably could provide you 150k in that role. It's just a matter if my only flag is Canelo coming back. I think he's due back pretty shortly. I think he was even a test last week, so he might even be back this week. And if Tom Green does end up staying in the side, then where does that leave Peatling? It could definitely lead him being back to the sub again. So bit of a concern there for me, a bit of a risky play, but it definitely could pay off for those that want to jump on board. He's at a pretty good price in the 400s, and like I said, could definitely provide some decent cash generation if you think he can get you through the buys. Has that nice forward status as well, so yeah, could be a good forward option to field. Moving along here, Callahan's quietly having a pretty good season for his standards, just getting it done. Seems to be growing as a player. Josh Kelly, another low 90, has a pretty good role at the moment given Kinnear is out. Just, probably not quite getting the ceiling scores that we sort of expected. Really, everyone that was sort of relevant here had quite a low game, so I didn't watch too much of this game. So we had a Darcy Jones score of 56, and his job security actually looks pretty good at the moment. So here's another one that could be a good trading target. I think he's sort of high 200k now, so probably one of the last weeks I'd be looking to trade him in. So if you don't want to miss out on him, maybe make him a priority this week. I'm personally probably just going to miss him as I've got too many other things to do. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good target to get onto. Cadman, probably it's time to go. His break even, just pretty much broke his break even. So he's going backwards in cash now. Lucky Whitfield, as we spoke about, or Shitfield should I say, 19 touches, one tackle, was tagged really heavily, so he's dropped a lot in coin and hurt us for the first time this year. And then we had Thomas, who started as a sub, cop 831. So again, hit his break even, which was nice to see, but yeah, has stolted all his cash generation, unfortunately. And obviously a Tom Green, who scored only with 7 points, being really disappointing. Moving on to the next game. Where were we at? Half an hour. Alright, keep moving along. Saints v North Melbourne, where Saints beat them quite comprehensively with about 40 points. So we saw the return of Jack Sinclair, a big 156, and this is sort of what we should be expecting from him. He's had a really slow start to the year. And is really a really good option this week, honestly, in terms of his price. He's a low 850. Pretty good run to the buys. He's obviously got around 15 buy as well, which I know a lot of people are struggling with fielding. I think not many people are too heavy in that zone, I don't think. So I think he's a pretty good option. My only concern with him, and I know I like to shoot on all picks, is that he is obviously playing in the midfield a little bit more now. Obviously he had a big spike this week with the 72%. But Brad Crouch is due back in 2 or 3 weeks, so it may only be shortly lived where he gets some decent CBAs. And it was really at the expense of Garcia, who moved out of there a little bit. So, which is probably what I would expect. I expect Sinclair to be in there a lot more than what I would expect Garcia. So, yeah, but I still think he's a pretty good option this week. Obviously, very cheap. We know he can score quite well, but it is, looking at these previous scores over his last month and a half, it is quite concerning with what he could score. And we've seen at his half-back role, he just isn't getting the supply that he's used to with the likes of Bonner and Wangan and Milera back there. So it's a bit of a risky play for me, but I'm definitely looking at it myself if I am looking in the market, and I think I am. Obviously, with the Elliot Yeo, a lot of us are looking at a replacement defender, or shifting the likes of Bonner back there and stuff like that, and getting a midfielder in. That's another option as well. So, not too concerned there. A lot of people talk about this in this game. This is probably the most fantasy relevant game we've had all year, and we've seen, obviously, it was a absolute demolishing by St Kilda, where they had seven players over a ton, so which is just ridiculous. We saw Royal Marshall put his injury concerns behind him and put up a 117. Did have a bit of support, so didn't get as many hitouts, but still put up 19 tackles and 19 disposals and 5 marks, 6 tackles, and just was pretty much able to just roam around free. As I think they pretty much said hello at the start of the game, and both just went, see you later, go get your own ball. And yeah, we saw Royal Marshall gets plenty of outside ball, which is disappointing for someone like me who traded him out. And yeah, it was probably a bad trade on my behalf. Saw Marcus Wonderhager put up another big game for anyone that had him still. 120, 112 would have really helped you in scoring really well this week. Did drop in CBAs a little bit this week with only 59%, but yeah, the role's still there for the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks, so I'd still be holding him if you have him. Probably wouldn't be trading him in at this point in time. Wanganeen Malira put up a respectable 104, probably a bit unders for what you would have expected for this easy matchup, and with the likes of Sinclair going, 150, so yeah, but at the end of the day, it didn't hurt you, which is a rare sight this week. Brad Hill probably repaid those that traded him in a couple of weeks ago after putting up a pretty terrible score in a 50 the other week, or last week, can't remember now. Jack Steele scraped to 100 after a slow start. I think he was on 34 points at half time, so he had a big second half to get in there, and it was just his tackles. He really just laid plenty of tackles to get him to that score, honestly. It still hurts me to think when I'm watching this game, I see him get like 3 tackles in a row, and it's just, he's such a tackling beast, unfortunately. And yeah, he's awesome to watch, honestly. Wish I sort of had him on my side, but he's also carrying that knee injury, a lot of strapping, so still a bit of a concern there for him, but I still think it's just a hold. I think from anything that we will learn this week is that you just hold your premiums. No matter how good of an option looks, you want to try and get your rookies off field. And speaking of the rookie, we had Darcy Wilson, who put up the biggest score of the rookies this week with just flat 100, kicked it 3 goals 2, and really cemented his name in the St Kilda side, and just looks like one of the best rookie options we've had all year. And lo and behold, I obviously do not have him, so after jumping off of him, I think a month ago now, so definitely missing out there, and he's really hurting me. So just another one I missed out on. Riley Bonner, put up an 87, so like I said, pretty respectable there. Not looking to move him on just yet. Pretty happy with his role. A lot of people were concerned with him being the sub this week. I was also a little concerned, but I think he's pretty cemented in that side, fortunately. So I think he's probably a decent hold for at least another week, if not into the buys, really. And we saw Garcia as a 47, making some good coin, so happy with him there. Probably just not a fieldable option, not getting his hands on the ball enough for what you should have expected. Moving on to North, Cherry, again, hurt me, put up a 127, just tackles everything he can inside. Had a lot of hit-outs this game, and like I said, the ruckman just went, see you later, go get your own ball, and they had really no pressure on them at all, so it was probably disappointing from his end to not get any marks. So yeah, but you're not looking to move him off him just yet. In my books, he's still making some good money. I think they have around 14, they have around 12 buy, so you probably could just hold him to his buy now. I don't think his run is too bad. Let's have a quick look at that. Where are we? Oh, it was bad, wasn't it? Yeah, he has a pretty tough matchup in the next 2. So you probably could hold for the likes of this week just to get that final cash rise, or you probably could even jump off this week. I wouldn't be too disappointed at that. It's just who you're jumping to. You could downgrade to the likes of a Sweet, who has a pretty good run until the bye. Hopefully, you can stay in the side until at least that round. Besides that, where's an English? You've got, you could jump to an English, but again, he probably doesn't have the best run. I probably wouldn't be looking at a Marshall just yet, even though he has a fantastic run. It's a pretty tricky one in my view. Obviously, if you don't have a Gorn, even though he had a poor score on the weekend, I reckon he could be a one that you jump on. He's probably bottomed out in price. Well, I say that, but he's priced at $1 million, right? So he's going to have a pretty good run, and I reckon he's going to be a pretty good captain option over the next couple of weeks. So probably one I'll jump on. Fisher came back into the side, played full game, and he still played in the halfback role. So put up a respectable 103, and this is what we sort of expected him from the start of the season. But with the likes of Hershey's moving out of that defensive line, he's just got more access to points, and he took a lot of kick-ins. So let's have a quick look at that. He took 6 kick-ins, played on from 5 of them. So he split them with Coben McKercher, and just has more access to points. And honestly, I probably could look at trading him in again. Probably in a couple weeks' time. Probably not quite just yet this week, given his break-even's still probably a bit higher. And I don't know how secure that role is for Harry Sheezel back there just yet. So probably a bit of a waste of a trade at the moment. Probably want to see it for one more week, if not a little bit more. He did butcher the ball a lot back there, similar to a Bonner. If they really want to use quality ball use, then they probably shouldn't turn to a Fisher. So there's that. Sorry guys, just need to take a quick drink. So Coben McKercher was the third one. Really pleasing to have him still put up the 30 touches, 3 marks and 3 tackles. So just really wasn't able to get his hands in the marking contest as much. And he was the main sort of kick-out taker, so the ball wasn't sort of being kicked to him, whereas McKercher was seemingly always kicking to a Fisher out of the square. So he got that +6 rather than just a +3 that McKercher got. So, but I'm looking at holding McKercher for a little while now. He may even stay on my side until luxury season. Honestly, he looks like he's going to be a pretty good 90 player for a little while. Harry Sheezel, I spoke about him a little bit off the top. Moved into the midfield pretty heavily. Let's have a quick look at that. What did he have in terms of numbers? Where are you? Harry Sheezel, so 45%. So wasn't a huge sort of CBA role. Obviously they have a few other guys in there with the likes of Tom Power. So played a bit more forward as well, so that's the concerning thing. I'd rather him have a full midfield time rather than having this half forward role as well. That's where he really just doesn't get the points, because it seemingly just flies over his head and then he's not able to get involved. So bit of a watch there for me. I still think he's going to be that top 6 defender, given his role is still pretty good. I do hopefully expect it to develop a little bit more where he gets more time in there. If not, then he spends a bit more time back. So it's sort of like a split between midfield and halfback. So I'm looking at holding him this week. I think a lot of us have bullets this week to deal with, so I wouldn't be looking at jumping off him. But again, if you didn't have anything, jumping off him could be a season-winning pick, because he could definitely put up a pretty stinky score if he plays a bit more half forward. Tom Power is very similar. Had low 50% time on ground CBAs, so improved role, but just not what we sort of would have liked to see, 70% or 80%. So yeah, that's okay, I guess. 70 in the forward line isn't too bad. I'm looking at holding him again, even though he's losing cash. Jury, if you had him, put up a 49, so his cash is moving in that direction. You're pretty happy there. And my boy Toby Pink came on as a sub, so really interesting sub tactic there with him. Scored the 11, so he's going backwards in price. the end of the day, he's a brown dot on my side, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's a red dot by then next week. So there's that. And Hardman was the other one that people were looking at trading in last week. He was probably one of the main guys to trade in. He scored the 29 and before being subbed out, unfortunately. Hopefully he keeps his role in the side, because I thought he looked pretty good. Wasn't outstanding, but I think he played well enough to hold his spot. Alright, moving on to the next game. We saw Melbourne defeat Geelong. What was it, late Saturday? So, a few names to go through here. So we saw Clayton Oliver hit his first ton in what felt like forever. I think it's his second ton for the year. What is he priced at now? It's pretty low. I know that. So he is a pretty good trade-in target. Break-even of 70 at 97. So tougher matchup this week. Probably one I want to see one more week from. That photo is scary, honestly. Yeah, obviously a really good, easy matchup last week. Even the week prior to that as well was an easy matchup. Just wasn't getting it done. So I'm personally looking at one more week, and then we can sort of reassess when it comes against West Coast. Obviously a great price if you're looking in that price range. Just probably not for me just yet. Yeah, I don't think he's just fully back yet. His time on ground was still pretty low, where he's normally like a mid-80s guy, so he's not quite in favour just yet. So it still scares me off just enough at this point in time. But if you're shopping in that market, you can jump early, because I think it would be very popular to trade in next week. Windsor repaid those guys that held him throughout everything he's gone through, so put up a 99. So didn't see too many people holding him though. So yeah, bit unfortunate for those that had already traded him out, not to get a big score like that from him earlier in the season. Max Gawn put up a 92, and he saved this late, honestly. I think he put up like a 42-point final quarter, so he was shocking, honestly. I was watching Bales watch along during most of this game, and yeah, it was very frustrating watch for that. Just, yeah, was moping around, unfortunately, in what was an easy matchup. So, yeah, that hurt from all of us who captained him. Like I said, I think 20 or 30% did it in the end. Petrarca looks like he's getting super cheap, honestly. What is he at now? He has put up some really stinky scores in the last sort of, I think, fortnight, or even last three for sure. 60s and 70s, and probably one I'm not looking at trading in at any point in time just yet, until he sort of hits some form again. So, but would I be trading him out? Probably not. He comes on a pretty good run, so I'd just back in your primos to sort of return to form, and yeah, that's where I'd sort of stand. We've learnt that holding your primos is the best, even though he's scoring quite badly. Just told him they could turn around eventually. And the like of Blake Howes scored a 50, so he's moving his cash in the right direction. I'm not looking at moving him off just yet, obviously with a few issues, but yeah, just a bench option in my view. Geelong, we saw Max Holmes finally hit the ton, so he's proven to be a pretty good option, a pretty good starting option if you started him. I'm sort of wishing I started him after talking about him a fair chunk in the preseason. It's just been a consistent sort of 90 guy all year, just been super consistent. Obviously got that defender status now as well, so you've been able to flick him back, and he looks like he's going to be a hold for a fair while. What break? He's got the round 14 bye, so maybe you could flick him off then, but he's not high on my priority list if I had him. He just seems like he's going to be around that sort of top 6 mark, so you can probably wait until luxury season, honestly. He's been a really solid pick. What has he made for the year? 132k, yeah, well, that's one I missed. That's disappointing. Could have gone him over the likes of a Jai Newcomb. Zach Guthrie is someone that's been talked about a fair chunk this week from what I've seen. I'm personally not looking at it. Yeah, I think it was just a game where he just popped up, and I don't think it's going to be super consistent. I do rate him as a player, but it's not probably as a fantasy player. Saw Tom Stewart with an 83 after his return. Just, he's an 80 guy, unfortunately. Just never going to break that ton. And yeah, just with the likes of Max Holmes playing off the halfback, he'd just taken a lot of those points from him. Ryan Myers put up a 78 for those that traded him in. Again, probably didn't hurt you too much. Probably was one of the better ones, given that I know a few others traded in a Baker or a McRae, and he put up the best score of the lot with the 78. So he's not too hurt there. Still has a good role. Just think it was a tough matchup with Melbourne, so wasn't able to get on the scoreboard either. So not too much to worry about there. Jack Clark, we saw him have a pretty good game. Didn't start as a sub as what we sort of expected. Gary Rowan actually did. And he probably had a pretty good role given the likes of Dangerfield being out and Tanner Bruin going down. So what do you have? He had 52% time for CBA, so really pleased with that. Hopefully he can keep his role and stay on the side for a little bit longer. Oliver Dempsey, for those that didn't trade him out, put up a respectable 60, so is now going backwards in coins, so I would be looking to jump off him if you have the freedom this week. And Cam Guthrie, for those that jumped on early, put up a terrible 46-7, so... And that was sort of the flag for him, given that Tom Stewart was obviously back and he sort of took his role a little bit. What was his role in the end of the day? Where he didn't have any... Wait, where am I looking? Sorry, he had 52. Wait, what does... Yeah, he has 52%, yeah. So, moved into the midfield a little bit more, just couldn't get access to the ball, unfortunately, in a tough matchup, so... Did he get managed at all? 61% time on ground, so yeah, that also hurt. And that's just what we sort of expect from him being, I think he's 30 now or something, or 30, mid-30s. Where is he? Guthrie, that's the one. 31, so yeah, I do think his best football's probably behind him, so probably not looking at jumping on him. Tougher matchup this week as well, so for those that jumped on him, maybe you just stick it out. Unfortunately, you traded him for a reason. You saw something, so I think that role's only going to get better and his time on ground's going to improve, so maybe it's a hold. But that's enough for this game. Let's move on to the West Coast versus Essendon game. Essendon, not Essendon, because they are shit. Joking. Not much to talk about here. Elliot Yeo obviously had that groin strain, so he's going to be out for a couple of weeks and probably is a forced trade for most. I think it's a good time to jump off him anyway because he's done his job at the end of the day. He made us, 150k, about that, before dropping 22k this week. And has put up some respectable scores, and he probably got, 4 weeks out of him more than what we expected. So definitely perfect time, in my view, to jump off him to, one of those top line guys like a Dacos or a Sinclair or even a Luke Ryan. I like the option of this week. So yeah, I think it's sort of a blessing in disguise a little bit. To put up a 62 and not a 7 like Tom Green I was thankful. So yeah, glad with that. At the end of the day, these guys I'm looking at, like I said, he was a mid-pricer, so I'm happy to sort of jump off him anyway. Harley Reid, I think he's just still a hold. Still making some decent coin and hopefully get some more points given that Yo is out. Moving on to Essendon. We saw Parrish return to his best with, high time on ground, put up a 147, and was just everywhere in this game. Was hungry for the ball like we have seen in the past, was spreading. His CBAs were back to where they should be, I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, back to his 80 role. So hopefully that just means he's back to, being back to Darcy Parrish we know. So I think he's a pretty good option to trade in this week. Obviously really cheap. I think it's about 850k. So yeah, really good in that price market. Got a pretty good run as well. Let's have a quick look here at that. So yeah, doesn't look great on paper, but yeah, no, he could definitely put up some massive scores in the next sort of three weeks, and yeah, it could definitely be one to jump on. I'm personally looking at it myself, just because I need that coin. Nick Martin and Zachy Merritt don't really talk about them too much. I think they're pretty stable as they are. Another talking point this week in this game was Jai Caldwell was subbed out with a calf strain, I think it was, or like a tight calf it was. So I think he'll be right to go next week. The concern with him for me is that his CBA role is completely gone. He had 0% CBAs that week, but it didn't stop him from scoring quite well 49% time on ground to score a 61. He was definitely on his way to a ton. So a little bit disappointing for owners that he got subbed out, but is definitely going to be a bit of a concern and a bit of a watch coming in the next couple of weeks, assuming he plays. So he's pretty low on my trade outs with the Bullets. So that's just my point there. I think it'd be fine. A couple more games to go through here. Don't want this one to be too long of a video. Saw the return of Jane Shaw. I'm just not looking at it at the moment. It's just Richmond are a basket case at the moment. They can't get their hands on the ball enough to score respectively, so I'm just not looking at any of these guys, unfortunately. Even on Liam Baker, who had a nice role there. What do you have? He had a nearly 80% time in the CBA, so to only put up a 74 is pretty disappointing. In that free kicks against doesn't help, but yeah. So needs to just get his hands on the ball a bit more. 18 disposals in that nice role just isn't enough. Even the likes of Dow got very similar. So yeah, Bolton had a shocking game. If he had traded him in, that's just what Bolton does. Unfortunately, what did he have? Plenty of CBAs. Yeah, he had 83% time in the CBAs as well. So just a really disappointing game, and that's what I sort of expect from Richmond at the moment until they sort of start to improve a little bit more. They've got to change up a few things, unfortunately. They're being beaten quite comprehensively, and they just had no pressure on anyone. So that sort of moves us on to Fremantle, where we saw some massive scores. So the likes of Luke Ryan put up a massive 160 and repaid the faith for those owners that held him after a couple bad weeks. It's just the definition of a seagull back there, just marks everything, and yeah, the ball just goes through him at every moment. Caleb Sarong was definitely the pick of the bunch this week to jump on to trade in. I know the likes of Bales did it, and I probably should listen to my own advice because he was number 2. Has an awesome buy, so I think he's a pretty good option to jump on this week if you have the coin. Brayshaw's an interesting one because he only had a pretty good score given that Nat Fyfe was the sub, so I'm personally not looking at him. I expect him to sort of drop down again once Nat Fyfe comes back into the side, assuming he comes back into the side. So yeah, probably one I'm avoiding at this point in time. He's been a pretty frustrating watch so far this year. Hen Young got there late. He kicked 2 goals in that last quarter, so I think he put up like a 40 or 50 point last quarter to really cement a good score because he wasn't looking great until that last term, honestly. John Clark, just another 93 or 90-ish, so you're pretty happy with that. Probably one you're not looking to move on just yet. Harry Sharp, for those owners that kept him, like myself, put up a respectable 86. Probably looks like he could be a hold for another week or so. Pretty happy with him. Luke Jackson put up a 74. Bit of a watch this week, given that Sean Darcy was subbed. Where's Sean Darcy? He was subbed out with, I think, a calf strain, so maybe he gets rested for a week. So Luke Jackson's owners that still hold him probably can look to hold him again this week. But just a bit of a watch on if he plays, then he's probably another priority trade out. Like I said in the last couple of weeks, dropping a huge amount of coin, and looks like he's just going to be scoring those sort of 60s or 70s at the moment. And we spoke about Nat Fyfe being the sub, unfortunately. I think he will come back this week, honestly. I think he'll be good to go. The Hawks v Western Bulldogs, which was probably the upset of the round. My boys, Hawthorn got up by 7 points. We saw English put up another huge score with a 126 against Lloyd Meek, who put up his own pretty good score. For anyone that has him, I don't think he's pretty popular, unfortunately. English is a very good option to probably trade into in the next couple of weeks. He's getting up there in coin now. He's just still below $1 million, and I'd expect probably by the end of next week he probably will be $1 million. So if you're looking to jump off and get into Ruckman, then yeah, he's probably one to jump onto. Doesn't have a hugely great run, but in the day, Tim English does wonderful things, and we know what he can do from last year. Adam Treloar just got it done again. For those that own him, he's been quietly having a amazing season. Again, probably just not respecting him enough to trade him in. Bailey Dale, for those that traded him in last week after putting up, 2 massive scores, probably had a lower, 105 is probably a bit lower on your end for what you sort of expected. Really did slow down in this game because I think it was on like 75 at half time, so had a pretty disappointing second term. I'm not 100% sure if he got tagged or anything like that. Maybe just Hawthorn got on top a little bit more and couldn't really get the ball to him. We spoke about Bont already, 103, pretty disappointing with that. Jack McRae, 66. I'm not too concerned. Just, given the forward line at this point in time, I'm not looking to mess around with it. I think he will come good next week. And maybe even, I'm just looking at holding him for a long term. If Bevo gets the sack, which there's a lot of media going on about it this week, then maybe we do see the likes of McRae we can throw back into the midfield and playing that role we all know he can. So big watch there for this week. Like I said, I'm not too concerned. I'm happy to hold him. And Gallagher put up a 47 for anyone that still holds him, so he stops his cash bleeding too much. Don't think there was anyone else too relevant in this game. I'll leave it at that, I reckon. Moving on to the Hawks, only a couple names just here to mention. Obviously, we saw Dylan Moore go back-to-back sort of 110, so he is a really good option this week, I think. Probably not as high as what maybe other people are talking about him as, because I still think that his role is going to be his role is consistent, right? But his scoring is going to be really inconsistent with, with the likes of Hawthorn being very up and down with their performance. We saw the likes of last week where they were absolutely shit, but he still put up a decent score. They were obviously really good this week, and he still put up a really good score. So, it still scares me, but he's at a pretty good price. That he is one that I think we can be pretty confident in bringing into our forward line. Doesn't have a good run though, is what probably deters me a little bit. Let's just say he's a general forward. I don't know if I call him a key forward, but looking at this run, if I can click the right one. Round 15 bye is what's nice, but pretty tough run in the middle here with tougher matchups to come, so could be some lower scores for him for sure, but he's going to make some coin, so happy to bring him in. James Sicily, just not looking at it, even though he did have a really good captain game. Obviously had his shoulder pop out and had a rolled ankle, so if you had him, be watching this week in case he doesn't play. I'm pretty confident he will though. He still had a lot of time on ground after that, because I think that the shoulder was popped out in the first quarter. John Newcomb's just on the watch list still, putting up some okay numbers, 85 again this week. Slowly getting back to his form, so just one on my watch list if I'm desperate. Kyle Amon sort of copped a bit of attention this week. I can't remember exactly by who. Was it a Gallagher or was it a... who was it? It was a Vandermeer, sorry. Vandermeer sort of just stood with him majority of the game, leaning on his shoulder, so he wasn't able to get too much of that distribution ball back there. So that kind of resulted in him having a pretty poor 71. So I don't think too many people on him still, so probably can avoid that one. Moving on to the final game of the round. Sorry guys, it's not a long one. The final game of the round where we saw some massive scores again. I couldn't believe it when I was looking at the scores at half time when I saw two players on 100 already in Zorko and Neil. So this just capped off my weekend not having Zorko after looking at trading him in all those weeks ago. So we saw the likes of Brisbane Lions beat the Gold Coast Suns. And Zorko on your fork put up 40 disposals, 16 marks, 5 tackles. Could have been bigger. He kicked 3 behinds in this and massive time on ground because they had so many injuries go down. 184 is the biggest score of the season so far. And hurt as a non-owner, and he is going to be $1 million by the end of next week, I would say. He just looks really good. He's got the halfback role again, which was pleasing for owners, and looks like he's a pretty good trade-in target. It's just really weighing up whether you're going to pay that $950k for him. it's tough. It's really tough in my eyes because it's a lot of money to spend on someone like a Dane Zorko who is 35, is very injury prone, but I think you just got to look past it and say, look, he's got a nice role, a very bruise free sort of role, just where he's able to mope off the halfback and grab the ball at will and just pass it to him. So I think he's pretty good. Definitely, if you're looking for a forward option, he's probably one of the better options, no matter the price. Josh Dunkley is quietly having a very good season. I think he's averaging like 113. Only dropped below 100 once this year, so he probably isn't getting the respect that we sort of should be giving him. He is quite pricey now, given that big score, but yeah, some decent scores in here. Some 120s, but just been quietly going about his business. And quietly has a pretty good run coming up into his bye. These two especially, and even the Crows aren't too bad in terms of that. Where am I looking? Sorry, hold on. Inside mids, let's have a quick look. Yeah, awesome. So I would not be turning anyone away that's looking at him as a little bit of a pod, honestly. I think he is a pretty good option. Lachie Neale turned back the clock a little bit with a 137. Probably was disappointing for anyone that was on him because he was on like 105 at half time. So only to have the 20-ish fantasy points in the final half was pretty disappointing. He probably could have put up 200 easily. Same with Zorko. I was cheering him on for a 200, honestly. What else do we need to talk about this game? Kyle Oman, if anyone that jumped on him, he's been quietly going about his business and providing some good scores, so he's making some cash for you as a pretty unique option. And finally, we had the Gold Coast Suns, who got comprehensively beaten, so we saw the likes of all their midfielders not really score really well. So Noah Anderson put up a 98, took Miller only a 77, Rao was even lower at 50s. The coach is a 50, so yeah, really disappointing from the Gold Coast Suns there. And now they head to Darwin, so it's a bit of a mixed bag with what you do there. A bit of a concern with what we're going to see up there. We have seen some pretty, it's going to be very dewy, so does that help the likes of a Took Miller and a Anderson get more tackles? I would like to think so, but maybe they're not able to get their hands on the ball as much as what we sort of are used to, so wait and see. Probably not looking at trading in Took Miller at this point in time. Anderson, not as well. He's going down in price. If you don't have Flanders, still I think he's a pretty good option at the halfback role. And I was pretty happy with Closey and Graham. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers everyone that we need to talk about this week. Maybe just a Rogers if you traded him in last week. Was pretty disappointing, unfortunately, which is what happens as a small forward when the team gets comprehensively beaten. He just couldn't get his hands on the ball, only had the 6 touches, 3 tackles, and that was about it. So, but hopefully he holds his spot in the side. But now I guess what we need to look at is my rankings of these bullets. So I'm gonna rank between Elliot Yeo, Zach Williams, Green, Fife, Caldwell, and Rosie. So 6 there. I want to rank them in terms of the priority trade outs because I know that's going to be a big a big discussion point this week. Obviously, keep your eye on the news. Obviously, I'm only guessing here as to what's going to happen with these guys. So keep an eye out for Tuesday where they come out with the injury report. So, but let me just quickly pull up what I think. So there you go. So we've got Elliot Yeo as my number 1 trade out target for the Bullets. So I think he needs to go. I think it's perfect timing for him to go this week. I think it's just a no-brainer. I think he's going to be out the longest of the lot. I've got Zach Williams as number 2. I think he's also going to probably be out for a couple of weeks there. He'd be pretty precautionary with them, so he can go. Rosie's number 3, and probably could have been lower given it probably only looks like it's going to be 1 week, but it's just the uncertainty if it's going to be only 1 week. Obviously, being a hamstring, it could be worse than what they originally thought. So, But at the end of the day, if you only have a Rosie and you didn't have like a Tom Green or anyone else that's going to miss, like a Williams or a Yo or something like that, then I'd probably even look to hold him, because he does have an awesome run. If he can get back to fit a week after this weekend, he's got a pretty good run. So I definitely think that could pay off for you. You'll notice that Tom Green isn't on this list because I think he's number 6 for me in my eyes. If he's a test to play this week, it's probably definitely only going to be a 1 weeker. So even if he doesn't play this week, it's probably a hold, and he comes out on the other side and continues his scoring ways. So, well, fingers crossed he does come back this week and can repay the faith for those owners, like myself. I had Caldwell at number 4. Just given the role is probably added in there a little bit. Just with no CBAs, he could put up quite a stinky score, as we have seen in the past. So maybe that injury is a bit of a blessing in disguise, that you can move off him to the likes of a Dylan Moore or something like that, where it doesn't cost you too much. And then I had Nat Fyfe as number 5. Big watch this week whether he's going to be the sub for me. Obviously Friday night is the 3rd game of the round, so we should know pretty early on, and I'm hoping to hold him until his bye, hopefully. Like I said, he's got a pretty good run coming up, just needs to hold his spot. But at the end of the day, they did win that game, so I wouldn't be surprised. But hopefully that clears up on what my thoughts are with priority trade outs. I probably have missed a few there that are probably a bit less popular, but I probably can answer those questions in the comment section if you have any questions. But to finish off today, we'll just look at what my trade targets are this week, and you probably can see them already. But I'm looking at moving off an Elliot Yeo and moving off a Roberts this week, going to Nick Dacos and going to a Darcy Parish. So at the end of the day, I only really had the 1 forced trade, so probably not as bad as some others. And able to jump off a Roberts, who has maxed out in coin and probably going backwards now. So jumping on to a Darcy Parish, who I think is back in form. I really like his run. Round 14 bye, I'm a little bit heavy in now, but I think he's a pretty good option, especially at his price range. Probably like him over the likes of an Oliver or a Saligo. Saligo is another option I was looking at, but I think this leaves me plenty of coin to play with next week. Nick Dacos, I think, is just a smash pick. I think he's pretty easy. I did play with the likes of going to Jack Sinclair, but again, I'm just a little bit concerned with his role's not going to be consistent, whereas at least Dacos' role is pretty consistent. Probably isn't as scoring inducive as what we sort of would have expected, coming into the season, but he's hopefully going to find some form and put up some pretty good scores for us. Hopefully puts up some decent scores this week against West Coast Eagles. But that's how my team's sort of structuring up. Won't look at captains just yet, but moved down to the 4 rookies. Got Closey on the bench there just for now. Obviously in Darwin, I think I'll probably look to not field him this week, even though he does have North Melbourne. But we'll wait and see until Thursday on that one. But I think that'll sort of do it. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Again, feel free to drop any comments you have in the comment section. I'll reply to all those. And again, I'll be answering any questions in my Wednesday night video in the preview. So make sure to drop your comments in there. And I will hopefully they will be featured in the video. And I'll answer them a bit more in depth for you guys. Besides that, hopefully you've enjoyed. Please feel free to give me a like and subscribe. Mention to a friend. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're up to 650 at the moment, so doing pretty well there. But hopefully your round didn't go as bad as mine, and you're up there still. Got a long way back, so I'm not gonna die trying. So let's see how we go. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.